Most people know Manny Pacquiao as a boxer, eighth division world champion, the only one in history. The man who stepped into a ring and made grown men buckle with a single left hand. But here's what doesn't get talked about enough. Before any of that, Manny Pacquiao was a hungry kid, literally a boy who sometimes had nothing to eat but bananas, who slept on cardboards on the street of Manila, who stowed away on a boat just to chase a dream that nobody around him knew or believed in. That's what I want to talk about today. Because Manny's story isn't just a story about sports. It's a story about what it actually costs to become great, about sacrifice that most people aren't willing to make, about a man who was forged, not born into something extraordinary. My name is Francis, and welcome back to the channel. Let me paint you a picture. It's December 17, 1978. A boy is born in Bukidnon. It's a small rural town in southern Philippines. He is the fourth of six children. His name is Emmanuel Pacquiao. Manny, for short. His family lives in a one-bedroom shack. His father works as a farmhand, picking coconuts all day for the equivalent of less than $1. His mother sells peanuts on the streets. And rice? Rice was a luxury. The family often ate bananas and root crops just to get through the day. And when Manny was in sixth grade, his father leaves. His mother is now alone with six children and no safety net. There was no government program that was going to step in, no extended family to save the day. Just a woman, her kids, and her desperation. The family relocates to General Santos City. Still poor, still hungry, still one bad week away from nothing. And by age 12, Manny is already working. He drops out of school not because he wants to, but because the family needs to eat. And somewhere in that crushing reality, he discovers boxing. His uncle Sardo introduces him to the sport. They train in a makeshift home gym. No fancy equipment, no professional coach. Just a boy with something to prove and nowhere else to put his fire. 6 months into training, and then Manny is in a park fighting and winning. He later said, I became a fighter because I had to survive. I had nothing, I had no one to depend on except myself. Think about that. Not, I want to be a champion, not, I dreamed of glory. He fought because he had no other choice. This is where greatness begins. Not in comfort, not in the ideal conditions, in necessity. By age 15, Manny Pacquiao is considered to be the best junior fighter in Southern Philippines. But Southern Philippines is hardly the rest of the world, and Manny knows it. So he does something that most people with far more resources than him would never have the nerve to do. He stows away on a boat to Manila. No money, no connections, no guarantee of anything. Just a teenage boy with a pair of fists and a belief that he was built for more than just poverty. In Manila, he lives on the streets. He takes on work as a construction laborer in the day, and at night, he trains. Every day, he is forced to make an impossible choice: spend the little money he has on food or send it back to his mother. He's a teenager, and he is carrying the weight of an entire family on his back. On January 22, 1995, Manny makes his professional boxing debut. He is 16 years old. He weighs 106 pounds. He wins. Nobody outside the Philippines knows his name yet, but that will change. Here is what Manny Pacquiao went on to accomplish, and I need you to really hear this, okay? There are 17 weight classes in professional boxing. Each one is a separate universe, its own champions, its own contenders, its own physical demands. A fighter who dominates one division is already elite. A fighter who crosses into two, rare. Three, you're in the conversation for greatest ever. Let me put that into perspective. Muhammad Ali, widely considered to be the greatest of all time, competed in his entire career with one weight class, heavyweight division. That's it. That's all he needed to do to become a legend. Sugar Ray Leonard, another all time great, one of the most skilled fighters who ever lived, won titles in five weight classes: welterweight, light middleweight, middleweight, super middleweight, and light heavyweight. Five divisions over 20 years. People called it extraordinary. And it was. It really was. Floyd Mayweather, undefeated, 50-0, one of the most technically perfect fighters in history. Also won titles in five divisions: super featherweight, lightweight, light welterweight, welterweight, and light middleweight. Five undefeated. Considered by many to be the best defensive boxer who ever lived. Here's the thing about Manny that will make your jaw drop. He started his career at 106 pounds. 106. That is at the absolute bottom of this sport. The tiniest fighters in the world. And from there, he climbed and climbed and climbed all the way up to 154 pounds, a completely different physical universe, fighting men who are naturally 30, 40, sometimes 50 pounds heavier than the boy who started from the bottom. Manny won world titles in eight world classes. Not five like Leonard, not five like Mayweather, eight. 12 major world titles in total. No one in the history of the sport has ever done that. Not Ali, not Leonard, not Mayweather. Nobody before and since. He holds Guinness World Records for it. He won his first major title in 1998, knocking out Thailand's Chachi Sasako for the WBC flyweight belt. He was just 19 years old, and over the next decade, he did not slow down. He sped up. He demolished Marco Antonio Barrera, a man considered one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world, walking to an hostile arena in San Antonio and getting booed by the crowd, only to completely dismantle Barrera in front of everyone who came to watch him lose. He stopped Oscar de la Hoya, the Golden Boy, the most commercially successful boxer of his era, in 8 rounds and sent him into retirement. He fought Miguel Cotto, Ricky Hatton, Shane Mosley, Juan Manuel Marquez. He beat Hall of Famers. He beat legends. He became the measuring stick, and in 2010, fighting Antonio Margarito, a man who outweighed him by 17 pounds. Manny won in a style so dominant that Margarito needed surgery afterward for a fractured orbital bone. Eight divisions, 12 titles. Fighter of the Year 3 times. Fighter of the Decade of the 2000s. And in June 2025, he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. The boy who could not afford rice. The kid who slept on cardboard, a Hall of Famer. But here's what I want you to understand. None of that happened because Manny was just gifted. A lot of people are gifted. Manny was disciplined. He was up before dawn every single day. He trained harder than anyone around him. His trainer, Freddie Roach, one of the greatest boxing coaches of all time, once said that when Manny walked through the door of his wildcard gym in 2001, he knew. He knew he was looking at something special. But even Roach would tell you the gift only opened the door. The sacrifice is what builds the house. Here's the thing about Manny that no statistic can capture. You have to understand what fight day look like in the Philippines. You see, his fights were often in the US, in Las Vegas, which meant that that was Sunday morning in Manila. People would wake up early. We would go to church, rush through mass, and then sprint home. Priests reportedly wrapped up sermons knowing exactly why everyone is in a hurry, and then the entire country stopped. EDSA, the most congested highway or road ever in the Philippines, will become a ghost town. Journalists describe walking down the middle of it on a Sunday stroll like a countryside. Tricycle drivers parked their vehicles and walked away. Shop owners closed early. Street vendors disappeared. Local government erected giant screens in gyms, parks, and public schools so that the people who couldn't afford to watch the pay per view could still watch. Cinemas sold out days in advance. Bars packed to the wall. And crime? The PNP, or Philippine National Police, reported near zero, I think it was zero crime in Metro Manila during his fights because it was not just low. Criminals were also busy watching. Even the wars paused. Muslim rebels and government troops in the conflict zones of Mindanao's, people who were literally fighting each other, observed informal truces during Pacquiao's fights so both sides could watch. Catholics prayed for him, Protestants prayed for him, Muslims prayed for him. Even the atheists, by their own admission, believed in something for as long as the fight lasted. Manny spoke himself about this at the United Nations in 2025. He said, "Every time I stepped into the ring, I didn't just fight for a title. I fought for my people and I witnessed how my fights brought the whole country together. Streets became quiet. No crimes, no violence, just families, neighbors, and even strangers watching together, united as one. Think about what it takes to unite 7,000 islands, 100 million people across every religion, every class, every political divide, even briefly. Think about what kind of person you have to be to become that symbol. He wasn't just a boxer, he was the answer to a question millions of Filipinos were quietly asking. Can someone who looks like us, who came from where we came from, can they win on a world stage? And every time Manny walked to that ring, he answered for all of us. And he answered with yes. Now, I could stop right there and I'll give you the highlight reel. But that's not what this channel is about. Because here's the truth. At the height of his fame, Manny was falling apart on the inside. The money came, the fame came, the world knew his name. And when all that came temptation. He later admitted he was drinking, he was gambling, he was being unfaithful to his wife. He was going to church on Sunday and living a completely different life Monday through Saturday. His marriage was fracturing. Jinky, his wife, the woman who stood by him through everything, she was done. The relationship had broken down so completely that she reportedly refused to even accompany him to a fight. His own mother sent him letters saying that his sister stopped going to school because there was no more money coming in. He had everything and he was losing everything at the same time. This is the part where success stories tend to skip. The moment when the person who fought so hard to get there starts to lose themselves inside of the success. And then something happened. Manny describes it like a dream, and he wakes up a different man. Now, you may or may not share his faith, and this is not what I'm asking you to consider. What I'm asking you to consider is what happens next because he became a Christian. He starts reading the Bible cover to cover. He stops gambling. He stops drinking. He stopped the behavior that was destroying his marriage. He gave an interview and he was praising God. His trainer, Freddie Roach, watched the transformation and he said his family is happy. He spends more time now with his wife and kids. It's not a gimmick, so there's good things that came out of his faith. Here is what strikes me about this chapter. Maddie had already climbed the mountain. He had the records, he had the titles. Yet the greatest battle he ever fought was the one that no one saw, the battle inside himself. And he won that too. What is that worth to people watching? After boxing, most athletes would retire and disappear into the abyss, into their happily ever after, quiet life of comfort. But no, Manny, no. He was just getting started. In 2010, he went to Congress. He was elected as the congressman representing the Sarangani province. And in 2016, he won a seat in the Senate with over 16 million votes. Now I know what you might be thinking, celebrity politician, fame translating into votes. We've seen that story before. But there's something different about Manny and his motivation is what I think matters. Before he ever ran for office, Manny was already spending his own money to help General Santos, quietly, consistently, building homes for the poor, giving scholarships to students who couldn't afford to go to school, donating relief supplies after natural disasters. His own staff said that he was the type of person who would give before you even asked. And then he had a realization. He said, what if I became a public servant? Then I can help more people. This is not a cynical calculation. This is a man who remembered where he came from, a man who still felt the hunger of that one room shack and decided that power was only worth having if you used it to lift others out of the same hole you crawled out of. His platform centered on poverty alleviation, education, and anti corruption, the exact things that shaped his own childhood. And in 2025, when he was introduced to the Hall of Fame, a ceremony that symbolized not just a career, but an entire life arc that no one knew that hungry child in Gen Z could have predicted. So here's what I take from Manny's greatness. Greatness, it is not born, it is built. And in the building process, it is not glamorous, it is painful, it is lonely, and full of days when nobody is watching and nobody cares, and you keep going and you keep showing up anyway. Manny did not have good circumstances, but he had a fire inside of him that refused to let his circumstances be the last word. He also showed us something harder to talk about, that you can fight your way to the top and still lose yourself when you get there. That success without character is a hollow trophy. And that is the most important transformation in his life. It was not just his boxing record, it was the decision to become someone worth the life he built. And he showed us that giving back isn't something you do when you have extra, it is the whole point. There is a quote from him I keep coming back to about his godliness. He brought me back into his kingdom to use me to glorify his name, to let people know there is a God and who can raise people from nothing to something. Now, I'm not religious per se, but I find the goodness in what he's saying. From nothing to something. That is Manny Pacquiao. That is General Santos. That is the boy with the bananas and the cardboard and the boat that he wasn't supposed to be on. That is what sacrifice looks like over a lifetime. If you made it this far, thank you, genuinely. This channel exists because I believe there's real lessons inside real lives if we're willing to look past the highlights. Manny Pacquiao's story is not just that of boxing. It is about what happens when someone decides in their most desperate of circumstances that they are not done. If you found it valuable, share it with someone who needs a reminder that it's not where you start, it's not where you end. It's what you do with your circumstances. See you on the next one.